And we're live from downtown Mill Bay. Downtown Mill Bay. Are we live? Is it? Yeah, there we go.
I'm very sad that I lost all my money in Vegas.
I'm very sad you lost what?
All my money in Vegas.
I don't think you're old enough to gamble.
This year's you know my
Pardon?
I only got kicked out of one casino. Do you know what we
Sure. We have one more. We have like a bit of the. I'm going to show you two films that you're going to have. I am going to give you a crash course in two entirely separate university courses that are a year long that we're going to do in like one day. So that you have something to analyze with and insult all the teachers that have tried to teach you for critical thinking. That was Bill for class, just a moment. We have started. I mean, have to shut the door. Pull out your notes, please. We've had these for ages. I think you do have these.
Gone for ages.
No, I know that, but we have literally had these. Like you may actually have them. Yeah, those.
I do not have
You do not have those?
I can tell you that.
Oh man.
Well, the sad part is,
I don't
You're
know
gonna
any,
come eat them today.
so many other people have forgotten them.
I don't think I've been here since the Battle of the Bars. So Ray Bull. You're out from America.
I don't know if I have any extra copies of this day. However, I could probably make one and have it pop out that printer if you want to go get it.
I know where the printer is.
Yes, but
It's over there.
just give me a
IT
second.
kind of.
Make sure I don't have an extra copy.
Oh my god. But where? Is it in back here or behind?
No, it's like outside. You know where the window for the IT is? It's like right behind it.
How was the math class, by the way? I'm on right before where it's.
Oh, I think I did that.
Oh yeah.
The day before we came. The day before break was so popular. She said it was high day. We were still
If I do this correctly. Ooh, well,
Oh, I might do my pencil. Liam, did you take my pencil? Liam, I swear you took my pencil.
It's my pencil. What are you talking about?
There's gonna be a problem. Liam, why did you take my pencil? Liam, I literally just grabbed that from your pocket. So excited for a second to
For what? Well,
I'm good at Alex. I don't have a seating plan.
I mean, unless you find it.
I don't have a seating plan in any of my classes besides for friends.
Dude, yeah, seating plan. That's what I
No.
should do.
No, please.
Mm.
I love sitting next to Liam Bay. It really makes my day.
What?
It makes
It
my
makes-
day when I sit
It makes me want to come to school every day. Every single time I have a DEF
Well, what
day.
if I made a seating plan? And then I just put you next to him.
Oh, I'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Can you put me next to Bowen too? This is,
Where's Bo?
I don't know. Is he maybe in a rugby thing? I thought there was a rugby.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
He's at
maybe.
sevens for rugby, I think.
So, and Rose, I have printed what we're currently doing now, coming off the color printer there, about 14 pages. One copy will come off, and the other one, it's not hole punched or stapled, so you just have to get the sheet of paper. Right in front of the IT office. If you want to go grab it, go grab, sort.
Close is like that. Close gets 5,000 for a week. Close time.
Okay. And what is it there? Your note should be out. We are on the page with all of the dogs as far as the note. We are finishing up. We have a little bit more left to do. We'll be starting physics. Rather than having a test for this section, we're going to end with a comparison, contrast, critical thinking activity that involves a lot of these areas. It is still testable on your final exam as well. Rather than since you just did an exam, we won't do that. Maury, Breyer, we will do that thing on next class because they weren't going to be open right now. But if you could email me a drink order, that would be helpful.
Yeah, can I do it right now?
Yeah, you can do it right now. So we have got started with evolution, done the various type, and then got to artificial selection and talked about pigeons. And farming and animal breeding. We looked at dogs and how we have bred them to look fairly silly. Where is an example? I don't think I have that on these particular notes, but just as a reminder. Notes should be out. Your package. You have taken at least 3. Pull out your binder. I want you to search.
I brought them to like review over break, and I don't know.
Then get out a piece of paper to write something down. A blank table is not showing that you're ready.
Where can I get some paper? Bring paper.
You are advertising. You're not prepared. Find some. Ask around. Don't ask me.
Yeah, you're trying to
Ask around. Show that you are capable and able.
It's got some notes on it.
We looked at some of the consequences of intentional artificial selection. Now, this, of course, was used for thousands of years before Darwin discovered, invented, published the theory of evolution. The really big deal about it was that it didn't involve choice. Humans have long known you can affect how animals look by just selecting who their moms and dads are. And the old German Shepherd no longer looks anything like the current German Shepherd, and that's why they have huge hip problems, because we've bred them to not really have hips. Same with the British Bulldog, who can now, in some cases, can't even see beyond the folds of its eyes, and a variety of other health problems, including the lack of a full orbital socket for the eyes of, what is that, a pug? Yeah, that's a pug. So humans have been good at this. We can do it, if we take over, we can do it so they're not even well adapted to live outside of a human environment. We've adapted them to look pleasing to our eye. We really like pugs that have their eyes bug out and pop out of their head, apparently. So that's what we bred them for, and that's what they do. Our next section on, well, I'll put this in. For animal breeding, we've been doing this a very, very long time. roughly 36,000 years ago for our dogs. Dogs, as far as you know, were selected first, cats second. Dogs turned out to be a fairly intelligent companion. A dog can be either tamed or wild, but it is what we call domesticated. Domesticated means that it's not just been tamed, but we have bred it to be suitable for our purposes. So a wolf that has been tamed is not a dog. It has a lot of instincts that aren't a dog. If you bother it in the wrong way, it may decide to challenge you for being head of the pack. And it will do so in a way that's very different, even if it's tamed, from a dog. Whereas a dog, we've bred its instincts to fit us. They try to smile, which is incredibly weird. We're one of the very few mammals that smile. What does a smile mean to every other mammal?
Aggression, baring teeth.
Baring teeth. You're going, ah, I could bite you. If you see a squirrel smiling at you and looking like it wants a hug, which is literally something I've heard described, that is what a squirrel does to let you know it's about to jump at you. It's getting ready to jump at you and bite your face off. Either you have threatened it in some way and it is not smiling. So if you look at, oh, look at the cute squirrel. No, that squirrel's frightened to death of you and it wants to let you know that you're invading its territory. It probably has kids that it's trying to protect, otherwise it'd run away. That's not, they're not domesticated. Domesticated are different. Some of the most dangerous creatures are actually domesticated animals if they're wild, because a dog, for example, doesn't have all the instincts to be afraid of humans, really likes human habitats, and so they'll hang around, and if they're wild, they're far more likely actually to attack and eat humans, because they're not afraid of us. Wolves have long experienced that if you start hunting humans, humans show up and then kill out your entire clan, so generally they have an instinct to stay away. We took that out of the dogs. So these are the products of selective breeding. When they first joined us by our fire and we fed them food and they decided to stick around, any ones that had puppies that we decided were a little too aggressive and they didn't survive, we slowly changed what the gray wolf was and eventually got all of those things. Yeah.
We already filled this out, but
Did we?
I have no, but I have
Well,
different
hundreds
stuff.
of years.
Yeah.
How far down are we?
No, but I have different stuff than you.
Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
yeah, just right there, I have like hundreds of years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's like hundreds of years of artificial stuff.
But I have
We have
farmers.
You like hundreds of years? And what do you want here? Armor?
Farmers.
Farmers. Oh, I see why. My brain was taking that. Selective breeding and artificial selection are the same thing. And so I was putting in the sentence a little too early and trying to guess what it was. How far down do we have?
We had up to there.
I consulted someone. Apparently they were behind where we were. Do we have that?
Yeah.
No. Do we have this?
No.
Ah, excellent. Plant breeding. I don't want to redo what we've already done. And we have everything on here all the way down to the bottom.
No, we don't have this.
Do we have this? Oh. What animal species have we specifically bred for meat? Cows. English language is a little weird. We eat beef, but we grow cows. Anybody know why we say beef and not like I'm eating cow today?
Makes it seem less like.
Yeah, you might think it's because we're polite. No. Where was English invented? In England. It's actually a form of German, because the German conquerors came up, took over a section. Some of it became High English and Low English. And then England was invaded by the
French. And what do French eat? They eat le bouffe, and they eat beef. And so the commoners who spoke a different language still referred to cows as cows, because that's what they were taken care of. But in the dining hall where the aristocrats were eating, they ate le bouffe, and then English changed to accommodate both. So we have Latin-derived words for our food, and older Germanic words for our livestock, and then neither of those are indigenous languages to the area, varieties of Celtic and anything else that came in, because English is not a language, it's several languages locked up in a trench coat, pretending to be a language. What else have we bred for food?
Pigs.
Oh, chickens. If you've cooked chicken, have you ever noticed that you take it out, you can check the temperature, it's done, but it will still have red on it? Particularly if you cook it with the bone. If you've seen that and you've checked the temperature, yeah, it's 165 Fahrenheit, it's done. The reason for that is chickens are killed a lot earlier now. We've managed to breed them to grow so fast that they now have very young marrow in their bones, and that has a type of myoglobin that stays red even after cooking for a little while. So they're not adult birds anymore. They actually grow so fast that if they kept growing and you didn't slaughter them, they would outgrow their legs and they wouldn't be able to walk.
Damn.
They just explode as one big meat bag. You can, no, we did that by artificial selection. You could give them hormones for that. Areas where hormones have been used are like in dairy production. If you give a certain amount of a hormone, the cow will give more milk. That's illegal in Canada. But if you're worried about that, if you drink milk, you get about 75% of the hormone you would get than if they fed it to the cow. Like, it's already there, they just have a bit more of it. But it turns out if you do that and the cow's not adapted to giving that much milk, it also gets disease higher, so most places have stopped doing that. Most of the time when you hear about hormones or medicine in feed, it's not really to make it grow faster, but to make it not die. So you put antibiotics in the feed so that they just have no risk of infection. And then you can sell it. And that is bad because evolutionary-wise, what are all the bacteria going to do in that area if they're constantly being fed antibiotics? Yeah, so it's a huge source of antibiotic resistance, which then infects us. So we generally dislike it because it affects our health, and there's a variety of laws now to help prevent that happening. What else do we breed for food? Pigs? I'm waiting for someone to say one that they think is, and it turns out not to be. What type of fish? Salmon. There are salmon farms, and apparently they are trying to breed them now. Particularly because if you grow salmon in a salmon farm, it's not really pink. It's not eating the same food, so they're trying to actually get it so it turns more pink. Wild salmon is much pinker. Pardon? They dye it. Anything else? Sheep. Yep. No, we definitely grow them for food. There is wool sheep and there is food sheep. Yesterday someone didn't say sheep, they said lamb, which means they just like to eat baby sheep. They just don't grow you for your adults. We eat the babies too. Pardon? Anything else? Turkeys, we definitely grow them for food, and we bred them for food. I've heard this described as an urban legend, that turkeys are so stupid that if you let them out of the farm, they will look up and drown if it's raining, because they go, what is that? And then they look up, and then their beaks fill with water, and then they choke, and then they die because they're drowning, because they're stupid. And then it is a bit of a, it's not like all the turkeys will die. I worked on a turkey for our farm for a year. They did get out of the barn. We did have to get them back in while it was raining because they will drown themselves. Turkeys are dumb enough to take a drink of water and stick their head in the water and not know to get another breath. So when you're calling someone a turkey, it's a particularly unique insult. Now a wild turkey, no. But a domestic turkey, we bred the brains right out of them. They're not very smart. Chickens have so little brain that you can remove their head famously There's many a farm that has made some money by having tourists come to gawk at the headless chicken that's still alive and clucking and walking around the yard. When they tried to kill it and they guillotined it, they took off the head, but they left a little bit of the brain stem, so the heart's still beating, the lungs are still working. And it turns out a lot of the things chickens do are reflexes, so they can still walk. And they'll still like bash their head against the ground, trying to peck things. But there's not much going on in a chicken head. And so it's not like they actually had there's a little bit of brain left. But we have bred them to be extremely dumb. That's a little sad. Although I don't know if the reverse would be better. You can imagine sitting at the restaurant at the end of the universe, and the cow comes up to your table and says, "Hello, what part of me would you like to eat? I've been exercising my rump. It's particularly juicy today." And then you say, "Oh, I'll have your ribs." And it goes, "Okay." And then it goes into the back and shoots itself in the head so the cook can butcher and then cook it for you. And so you have consensual meat that you bred to want to be eaten. There's a variety of science fiction that has explored the idea of the ethics of breeding things to consent to things. I'm glad we don't live in that universe just yet. But it's a problem your children might have to worry about. Next one, I don't think, and no one said it, so I'm guessing we don't have any hunters, are deer. A domesticated animal that we have. No, we hunt it for meat, but it wouldn't be something we domesticated for meat. We don't grow them, we don't breed them, we don't get them for meat. It's usually hunted. And if there are captured deer, they're usually captured wild deer. They're not part of a breeding program that I know of. If there's some farmer out there who has started that process, that's entirely possible. What do we have? Obviously cow for milk. What else? Goat. The best brownies I've ever had are made with goat milk. Anything else? What? Did you say fish?
No, it says sheep.
Sheep. There is, in fact, sheep's milk and goat
Oh, I knew this story.
and horse.
Goat. It says goat right on.
Oh, right. I put that in. I got too excited. And a goat is far more common than the other two. And there is, as well, pig.
Oh, almonds.
Almonds?
Yeah, almonds.
Almonds.
That is true. I'm not sure they probably have actually, started a strain specifically to squeeze out
Where did
the juice.
almond milk come from? Almonds or cows?
Almonds. Just to be clear,
How do you make almonds?
Yeah.
Uh,
How do you milk an almond? Right?
just to be clear, what we call milk, traditionally the product of a mammal that's intended to feed its young. And then people who do not, either lactose intolerant or allergic, need another alternative. But it's such a part of our culture, they want something that vaguely looks like milk. And one of the hallmarks of milk is that it's high in fat and protein. If you squeeze a variety of vegetables or nuts and get out what's essentially the juice, then we just call it milk for marketing purposes. But yeah, it's just when you take an almond and you grind it up and squeeze it down and pass some water through it, you can get that out. You can make it yourself as instructions, just get a bunch of almonds.
Are ducks also bred for food?
Ducks are also bred for food. There are definitely ducks that are bred for their food as opposed to their plumage. Physical labor, we obviously have the horse. What else does work for us?
Camels.
There's a particular type of cow or bull that does it. We actually call it by a slightly different name. Ox. Cow or bull, they can be used for labor, but they're typically bred for meat or milk, and then we may use them for something else. Ox has been bred to pull a plow.
Dog. Camel.
Dog. Camel. For physical labor. Hmm?
I did not say that.
There are places in the world where they may eat dog, but as far as I know, it's not specifically bred for that. It's usually a really efficient form of using food that nobody can eat. So if you have a dog, you let it run wild in the area, it comes to you, but it's scavenging for food, then it's developing protein essentially out of food that nothing else is eating, and then later on you eat it. People also use pigs for that. It eats stuff that nothing else will eat, and then you get the protein out. Goats were often used for that as well. Eating all the weeds, the other things wouldn't, and then you can still turn it into protein.
Llama could use this physical labor. I feel like it could. Because people ride them. No, people ride alpacas.
Gentlemen, we've got a long history of it, and all the answers, of course, are down here in the timeline. Dogs are definitely the oldest that we've ever found evidence for. Cat, fairly old, but not quite nearly as old. Chicken, I think, is the most popular meat in the world, if you add it all up, and is a relatively recent addition to our diet. Now, I like this section. This is where I get to say, the most evil plant. Because people have been using wild mustard, and we find evidence of their diets from thousands and thousands of years ago as an herb and a little bit of nutrition in the wild mustard. And then someone said, let's take the seeds and breed for different parts. So if you breed for the lower leaves, you get kale. If you breed for these leaves, you get broccoli. If you breed for the upper flowers, you get cauliflower. Also, if you breed for some of these, gentlemen, upper leaves, you can get cabbage. If you breed for where these fruit on the side, but you breed just to keep, for that fruiting body to get as big as possible, you get Brussels sprouts. And then I think I've mispronounced this every time I've said it, so I'm not going to try. But if you breed for the root, you get that. Again, I don't know, because all of them are the worst vegetable that exists. Are you just calling out again? Excellent. Hand up, please. I dislike all of them. And this is where I also get to say there is absolutely no such thing as a vegetable. A vegetable in terms of science doesn't exist. It's a culinary term. If whatever you're eating doesn't have a lot of sugar in it, but it's still good for you, we tend to call it a vegetable. If it has a lot of starch instead of sugar, we tend to call it a carb. So that's rice, wheat. But wheat is a berry. Wheat is a berry. Rice is a seed. So we have seeds, we have berries, we have roots, we have tubers. We don't have vegetables. We have fruits, but fruits are just what we call the fruiting body of things that have a lot of sugar in them. There are fruits that we call vegetables. I mean, intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that you don't put it in a fruit salad. So we've been breeding a lot of these plants to get our nutrition out of them. Our tongues are designed evolutionary-wise to really like sugar. For most of human existence, humans were calorie poor. It was difficult to get a lot of calories. You have to dig up roots and then process the starch, mash it down, and cook it. In the summertime, if there were fruits on trees, you got tiny little pebbles of fruit that had a little skim of fruit on the top. And then to pay back the tree, when you gathered that to eat it, you usually either spat out or pooped out, depending on whether or not you swallowed the seed, and then the tree could grow. The tree really liked that arrangement. We liked the fruit, but we had to work hard to get it. And by we, I just mean all of humanity. But humanity looked at those trees and said, I really like the fruit part. I don't like the seed part. And this tree has slightly more fruit. So we took the seeds from that tree, made sure we got the pollen from another tree, and then we kept doing that, and now we have the modern day peach. This is the natural peach from about 4000 BC. We find evidence of this around human encampments in this area of the world. People were eating peaches. It has now spread all over. We have bred them to be ginormous in terms of their size. This is 2.5 centimeters. This is now up to 10 centimeters. We've got 90% of it is edible. And it tastes better. The original one, you can find the original one. It tastes salty. Doesn't even taste super sweet. It's kind of sour. It's not very good in terms of why would anybody eat this? We eat it because at one time, that's all the sugar you could find. And that's why your tongues love sugar so much. To do that work and to get to it, you had to love sugar. And now we found a way to extract the sugar and like put it in gelatin, and then you just go uptown and you buy candy, and you can buy as much candy as you want, but your tongue still thinks it's rare. And it's one of the most common things we have because we liked it so much, we made sure it was common, and everybody has some. We now have a problem that's only started in the last 5 years, that we've had to stop in many zoos around the world. They've stopped giving fresh fruit to like their monkeys and great apes because we have bred our fresh fruit to be so sweet that it's giving them diabetes. Our fruit is now candy. And I still find children who eat fruit and they go, it's not sweet enough. Can I have some gummy bears? And I'm like, my God, do our tongues love sugar. They now just increase the amount of kale in their diets, which is sad because it's the worst vegetable in the entire world. The original use of kale was to line the glass where they would show the meat or dishes of a restaurant. And so you could just see it in the display case. It was literally wrapping paper. And then they hired the same marketer that in the early 2000s made bacon really popular. And they said, can you make kale popular? And they said, sure. And they made it a health food. And people had kale salad, which was difficult to chew, but they felt healthy. And now kale's everywhere. It's nonsense. Oh, terrible. I mean, apparently it reduces your risk of cancer and is really good for you, but who cares? I have gummy bears. But breeding-wise, very, very quick. The example up here is corn. The original corn is like a row of kernels. That's it. Modern day corn with all of the kernels around it produces such a high energy pack. We can grow so much of it that in some countries they just take it and turn it into sugar through a chemical process. That's where high fructose corn syrup comes from. It's not corn, but we've chopped up all the starch so it becomes sugar. And then you can put that into anything, because again, our tongues like sugar. It didn't take us very long. In South America, the original, you can still find variations of the original corn plant. It was actually just a short matter of generations before you got something that we would recognize as a cob. They're still much smaller, and modern farming has just exploded that hugely. So, plant breeding. Plants are also domesticated. We often talk about the invention of farming, but even before we quote-unquote invented farming, we were domesticating plants. Even people who moved a lot, hunted, gathered, they would find areas that had great plants. They would make sure the ones that grew were the ones they liked and would ensure that they survived. And with any ones that seemed worse, they would make sure didn't survive and didn't leave children. And so they always had the best plants. So there's farming practices happening before we officially have people, settling down and staying in one spot the whole time to grow food. We started with grains. Probably the first ones to be domesticated by humans 12,000 years ago in the Middle East. There's actually an argument to be made that we didn't domesticate wheat. Wheat might have domesticated us. We've actually evolved a different gut structure to be able to eat wheat more readily. It's one of the more digestible grains. A lot of the other grains are grown not because they are better, but because they can grow in conditions wheat can't. And so something like a original pumpernickel bread was well known and was titled such because in German, I believe it means that you just fart a lot. The grains were really hard in your stomach. It was hard to digest, but you could grow that grain where wheat didn't grow. And now we've evolved wheat to grow in even more places. We love it. We've domesticated plants for their seeds. We have grains, rice, peas, and beans. Their fruit. Apples, oranges, berries. Technically tomatoes. Their leaves. Roots. which is onions and celery. And the tubers, carrots and beets. Tubers are a particular type of root that is using a starch storage underground to survive from one season to the next, and we just evolve those to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we have something to eat. How many people are we on the planet right now? 8.2?
We do not have 200 million pieces.
Top of here, 8.2 billion need to eat every day. It's hard to underscore just how good humanity has become at this. Our farming practices became extremely efficient. One person feeds thousands of people. I grew up on a small dairy farm. We filled a tank, a small dairy farm. The tank was probably half the size of this room, came to about there to there, came to here, was that high. We filled that up every 2 days of milk. So that's thousands and thousands of liters going out into Vancouver Island. Way more than we would obviously eat as a family. So very efficient practices that have just gotten better and better and better. The farming practices now, even from when I grew up, just for dairy farm, we're producing that much milk. They've made it safer. It's now almost hermetically sealed from cow to your table. It's sealed off so nothing from the farm can get in. Once it's been filtered, purified, and in, everything is sealed off and taken away. That turned out to be a problem for Swiss cheese, but they discovered why and fixed it. And we grow one type of plant because we use machines in order to cut the plant. If you grow one type of plant, it's a lot easier to cut a lot of plants if they're all the same. And so we have some problems with modern agriculture because the technological requirements are often different from the biodiversity. So we grow large amounts. If we switch to a less intensive mode of farming, like worldwide, let's say everybody tomorrow decided to go organic, we would have to find 6 billion people to volunteer to starve to death. We wouldn't be able to feed on the arable land we have on our planet. Just takes more land. We need to be fairly careful about our farming practices in terms of how much land we use, because there's only so much farmland to go around. But we've gotten really good. We produce way more food than our people. China almost produces enough food for the entire world. And everybody else is just a little bit on top of that. It's not quite, but it's very close. And we get better at it relatively quickly. By 2050, I think for the first time, they predicted there might be a decrease in population, a natural decrease, or leveling off. We might stop actually going up. And the reason they think is because we've had a huge drop in infant mortality. Turns out, if you are worried that when you get really old and you need someone to take care of you, and you need a couple of kids around, if you have a 30% mortality rate in infancy, then you need like 10 kids to guarantee you'll have 2. You'll probably have more than 2, but if you want to guarantee it to like 98% chance you'll have 2 kids left, you need like 10 kids. But if your infant mortality is like 1%, 0.5%, you basically just need 2 kids. And everybody stops having kids then, or as many, because they're really expensive, and they cry, and you have to send them to Brentwood, and that's like pushing a new car into the ocean every single year. It's mandatory, and when you become of age, of course, you will send your children here because you will have no choice. It's just something you have to do. I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. McPherson. And then, of course, immediately after you graduate, you'll get all the email requests from the school to donate money. So you can, right now, if you've ever, say, gone to the health center and said, I'm not feeling very well today, and got out of class, but you actually were well, just imagine your parents pushing that new car into the ocean. That cost them a couple of steps, and they got nothing out of it. I'm not commenting on any one person. And so it turns out if you can guarantee that you'll have a couple kids survive, most people are pretty happy with just a couple kids. Large family numbers are usually a product of high infant mortality rates. And we've also been really good at lowering that worldwide, every country. One of the problems when we get really good at food production is the monoculture. Greg? Joan? If we're only growing one type of plant, what is that plant at risk of?
Death.
Death from what?
Disease.
Disease is going to target something easy. You have a lot of the exact same plant. This is even worse if you're using some sort of cloning method. The disease can evolve to hit it quite quickly, and then we've lost our food plant. Anybody here live in Florida? Knows anybody in Florida? You know somebody in Florida? Ever going to go there to visit? If anybody does for holiday, apparently they have some of the original Cavendish bananas still growing there. You can't grow it commercially anymore because it's a monoculture plant, and a fungus evolved to kill it. So as soon as we try to grow it in large amounts, they all die. But some people have them in their backyard. They are the original banana. By all accounts, they are bigger, better, apparently much better tasting than our current bananas, and they're what your great-grandparents would have ate, because that was the only banana that they had.
What do they look like?
Like a regular banana, just a little bigger. They all died. You will see online people will say they all died out. They didn't. They just can't be grown commercially because of disease, but people still have them in their backyard. So if you're in Florida, you can get a hold of it. Bring it back to me. I wish to taste it. You know, if you want an A in the class.
Oh.
Yeah. Just bring me over there. Now, just to be clear, because I realized I'm being recording, I am joking. And I would never ask you to break the law in a way that could put you in jail, because smuggling fruit across the border could absolutely do that.
You can't smuggle a
Wouldn't it
banana.
go bad?
You can't.
You should be quick.
You can't bring a banana across the border.
In many countries, you cannot bring fruits or vegetables across the border. Why? Disease. We want to make sure that our crops are safe. You did not live through the mad cow disease scare in the 80s and 90s, but we want to make sure diseases aren't spreading, particularly when we have monocultures. Yes?
Like in the metal detectors at the airport. Can they detect
I do not want something that's ever been there, just to be clear.
I mean, it was still be in the peel.
And they don't just use that anymore. They now use sound waves to get a very accurate picture of everything inside. So yeah, they can actually see if you're bringing. They want to stop people from bringing disease into a country and hurting their own plants.
Nevada. Like I got a search. My dad got
Then
entire.
we'll try.
Graham, Liam,
Sorry.
Aiden. We want to grow a large amount of plants in as small a field as possible, and using machines to do as much physical labor as possible, so we can grow enough food for 8.2 billion people. By 2050, we need to have that to between 9 and 10 billion. That's a lot of food. And it sounds scary that, like, what if we ran out of food? We're actually pretty good at making food. We've really gotten good. There's some other technology on the horizon. Our main problems tend to be either fear, people don't understand methods and get worried about it, or distribution. When COVID happened, there's a farmer who went mildly viral. He was an onion farmer, and he has acres and acres and acres of onions just rotting in his fields. And people are like, why don't you take it to the food bank? And he's like, our local food bank has so much of my onions. They do not want more of my onions. All the restaurants are closed, and that's who he delivered to. So his entire distribution network was built around delivering those onions to restaurants. Once that shut down, there's nobody who's going to take it. And so that food is rotting. Meanwhile, other people in other areas are food poor. They don't have enough food, or they don't have enough fresh food. We have more food than we have people. There's no reason for anybody to starve on this planet except for logistics or capitalism. How many of you have heard of the Irish potato famine?
Yes.
Right. Describe. What was it?
Like potatoes got infected and no one could eat it.
Potatoes got infected and no one ate it.
There's only one type of potato, so
infected all of them. So why did they starve?
They didn't like make variety.
They didn't make variety. Those farmers should have had more variety of food. That is often how the tale is told, and that tale is technically incorrect. Was there enough food in Ireland to feed their population?
Yes.
Yeah. The Irish grew potatoes for their own crop to feed their families because it was an easy crop to grow without much work, and they were almost all hirelings and working on farms owned by the English in Ireland. When the Irish potato famine happened, the wheat that was in their fields was there, still got cut down and shipped away from Ireland while they were starving. So the Irish potato famine wasn't a failure of a crop and a country's inability to feed itself. It was an example of landlords making sure they extracted all the value regardless of what that was doing to the population. They didn't own the food, so they weren't allowed to eat the food. But there was more than enough food to stop the famine. It was a monoculture. We actually have that same disease here in Vancouver Island. If you ever try and grow potatoes here and they start getting slimy underground, it's a very similar mold, and you'll get that here as well. It's present in a lot of areas. Areas that have difficulty growing potatoes, once it's in the ground, it can last for a really long time. This system is very efficient. We can grow a heck of a lot of food. This is an old graph, 1999. Checked on a newer one. It hasn't changed too much in terms of amounts. This is how much food we can grow. That's our population. Ratio is the same even in modern day. Some of these have switched up a little bit in terms of who's growing more. We produce more than enough food. There's no reason for anybody to starve. If we can work out the distribution and we can work out capitalism, we could actually have everybody have enough food. We waste so much just making it look pretty. Right at the farm, we'll take food and go, you know what? This carrot is nice and straight. We're going to put it in a box. This carrot, it kind of goes to the side and it has another leg and it will hit the store. It's just as good, just as much nutrition, but people won't like it. So we're going to just throw that away. They'll donate some, maybe to a food bank. Some stores, when they get stuff that they can't sell, they actually deliberately spray it and poison it so that homeless people can't take it out of anything, and people can't use it so that they can make sure everybody's buying food. Again, capitalism sees the means of production.
The grocery store I work at with like the fruits and vegetables, we like donate it to this loaves and fishes like place, and they like it's like a place where they like sort through all of it to see what's like salvageable for humans and
which
animals and stuff.
there are a lot of places that try and get it donated because there is so much waste, and if you have a good grocer, it's always controversial, and we take things and we destroy it, so people have to buy things. But if you're trying to sell things, it's been a temptation. And again, it's distribution, because also that food is spoiled. We're still ordering more than we need. We could still figure out a way to divide it up in a way that people could still get food. But we need the willingness to do so.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about you.
Problems with this method. We lack the genetic diversity needed to be robust. We did lose an entire species of banana because they were all the same banana. Bananas are even worse. It's not just the same type. They're all clones. If you've ever eaten a banana, you know those tiny little dots in the black in the middle? Those are immature seeds that will never develop into true seeds. It's a clone that just doesn't make seeds. So the only way we can make new banana trees is cloning that original tree. You can't grow it from seed. It's not no longer sexual reproduction. So they're all identical. A disease can take them all out. A disease could take out the current banana for much the same reason. So we could lose the current one, so we want ones in backup. If you've had a watermelon with no seeds in it, that is a mutation. We have to clone it. We have to use a different method of reproduction, and then people can enjoy their watermelon without seeds. And diseases, I keep saying diseases because I could say viruses and bacteria, but there's also fungus, anything that can evolve quickly enough to hit them. Monocultures are a danger for that. There's projects to have seed banks where they go around and collect all the heirloom seeds that people have hoarded that we've forgotten about because we don't grow that type of apple anymore. How many of you have had a Red Delicious apple? Like the brand Red Delicious, the type, I mean, not the brand. What, only 2 of you? It's the most common apple in the world and the cheapest. They serve it at every school because it's so cheap. Hands up if you've just tasted one once. Yeah, pretty much everybody. Okay, hands up if you had a Red Delicious and you thought it tasted good. Really?
Like the red apple, right?
Yes, it's the standard, cheapest red apple.
A bunch of different red apples.
That's it.
There's like ambrosias.
So you know, its original taste was apparently a lot like the Honeycrisp, according to people that have tasted both. Honeycrisp is considered good.
Are these locked?
This is not a conversation every time I pause. The reason you get the different flavors, the Red Delicious became really popular very quickly, and everybody wanted some. They found, however, the farmer is like, great, I've been selling to my grocery store, the town next over wants it, ship it there, they think, great, I need to grow more, I ship it to the city over, by the time it gets there, it's rotten. It didn't ship well, so the farmer's like, okay, I know what to do, and I start selecting for trees that give apples that last longer. Also, it turns out consumers, particularly in the US and Canada, they liked the name Red Delicious, but the original Red Delicious wasn't red. It was just redder than the other apples. So to brand it, they also made it a deep red. It turns out both of those things took away all the flavor. It did, however, make it really cheap to grow. Grows in almost drought conditions sometimes, and you can ship it everywhere and it doesn't go bad. It just tastes like terribleness.
It's also like mushy.
Yeah, it doesn't have a snap to it.
It's gross.
The original one did. This one does not. And it's because we bred it for that. You'll notice if you like a particular type of apple and it gets really popular, it will slowly over generations lose the flavor as they breed it to travel further and further distances. Because the cellular structure you need to travel is different than the cellular structure that tastes good. So buy local apples and local breeds if you can, if you want something that tastes fantastic. Anybody know a local apple that they've been really enjoying? Hmm? Oh, Cosmic Crisp is good. There's a new one. I think it has a Pippin at the end of its name. It's apparently quite good. I'm investigate it. Crops and animals are selected for their efficiency, not necessarily for their taste or nutrition. And this has nothing to do with organic or non-organic. The nutrition in an organic and non-organic are exactly the same. I think that was supposed to be taste or nutrition, so you can just get rid of that. But when you're breeding for something that can travel well, sit on the shelf, be attractive to consumers because of the color, you're not necessarily breeding that it will taste well, because once they bought it, well, you bought it. This is true particularly in North America. There is some of this in other countries as well. They did try this in France, apparently. They set up US-style agricultural practices, fruits and vegetables there, and they have almost always universally failed because the French population will reject things and stop buying them if they don't taste good. So if you go to France, you're like, why does the tomatoes taste so good? Is it because their farming methods are different? They're literally using different breeds, and they can only ship them locally because the people just won't buy it if it's bred to come from far away. And we also should mention Market forces also determine the welfare of crops and animals, which is independent to how efficiently they can be grown. Efficiently, I'm going to say, or ethically, because we need to feed 9 billion people on the planet. But at the same time, there may be practices we don't necessarily want to do. Those cows are fairly happy cows. Those pigs are not happy pigs. And if you're doing industrial farming methods and you want to give people bacon, and people want efficient bacon and cheap bacon, then you never let the pigs see the light of day, and they just grow in farms like that. That farm I grew up on, cows would go out in the field every summer. They had a space to move around even if they were in a barn. And that particular, that's a lot like growing veal. They never get to move, they stay in the same spot, and they get fed that way. You will see stanchions. Stanchions are a term for that, they're not permanently penned in, but that's just where they go to get their food. This is not that type. You can tell that the pigs don't really come out of there until it's slaughter time. Can be similar with chickens. I actually have this one because it's a bit of a misleading picture, because this is actually a barn. If you look behind the photographer, you'd actually see that there's a lot of room. They're not kept in all in the same pen. They run back and forth, and they like running back and forth as a group. The barn is almost as big behind them as it is forward. They've just all chosen to go there. You can also get, if you set it up the right way, they will advertise that these are, I don't know, ranch chickens, and they have, you imagine they go outside and eat grass and feel the sun. And you can design a barn that a chicken or turkey or anything never wants to leave. The food's there, the water's there, it's warm, it's the right temperature, it's just big enough. And then they go outside and it's like icky and maybe wet, and I don't like it, and then they go back to the barn and never come out. So it's the sole reason that the door's there is just so they can advertise that they have access to an outside, not that they're actually trained to enjoy the outside. So that's a little bit better than this. But you get, if you're trying to grow for efficiency, you've got to feed 9 billion people. Capitalism is really good at efficiency. We can get our apples to go long distance. It may not taste good, but it'll feed people. We can grow our bacon fairly cheap. But maybe that's not good for the pigs.
Does it make like the bacon lower quality?
No, really. There are seasons to slaughter. So if you get a cow at a certain time, we're very used to, you can just go to the store at any time of the year and buy ground beef or steaks. But there are seasons in which they eat different food, especially if they're grass-fed, and the beef will taste differently. And so there are people who will say, like, I only buy my beef in season and then fill up their freezer for the rest of the year. But modern grocery stores have gotten us so used to the idea that you can buy strawberries any time of the year. It just fluctuates how much they cost because you're shipping them in from California, Mexico, if you're here in Canada, where they have lots of sunlight and they can keep doing it. Maybe not California so much now. I did see a large stack of fruit that had product of the USA going, just sitting, not being bought. But we get a lot of our fruits and vegetables from there. Okay, we are now done all of biology.
We go early.
Wait, that's
No, because we're not done the course yet. As I said, we're not going to have a test. But we are going to have a section. I'm going to show you 2 films, and you're going to have an analysis section. And in looking at it, it's a variation of an assignment I had last year. I put in a new film. There's a bit more reflection in it. You're going to have to research a couple of claims. And it's going to be on genetically modified organisms. And there's ethical concerns and critical thinking concerns. How many of you have had a teacher tell you about critical thinking? And that you're excellent. What is critical thinking?
Thinking critically.
That's just reverse the words. It's great.
That's the
What does that mean? Give me an example of what you're doing when you're thinking critically.
thinking
Science.
critically.
Science! Not all science is critical thinking. Some is just plain experimentation. Yeah? Interpreting, not really critical thinking. Could be, depending, but it's a much more narrow focus than I think many people. The problem is in education. Every time you think, we tend to call it critical thinking because we get excited as teachers. And you'll find that through all educational practice. If you go to university and take critical thinking 101, what course are you taking? First year logic. It's just first year logic. That's all it is. You get any university, any place in the world, it's first year logic. You'll learn deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning, and that's all it is. Critical thinking is just logic. Pardon? No. It's not a required course. And you definitely learn logic in a lot of courses. How many of you have learned in a course, probably English, about a premise and a conclusion? Hold it, none of you? How many of you learned about a premise and a conclusion? Only some of you. Some of you don't know what that is. Do you have a question? Crazy? Do you have a question? No? Sorry, I thought you had your hand up there for a second. If not all of you know what a premise and conclusion is, like many activities we will do in a variety of different subjects, I'm going to ask you to make some ethical choices, and I'm going to ask you to make some bias and reasoning choices. And then I had the thought of, do you know what those things are? And there's an entire course called Logic 101 that you can take, or 201, depending on your university. And so I'm going to teach you all of it in like hopefully one day. And I'm going to teach you all of ethics, which is a year-long university course, hopefully in one day. Because do you know what is ethics?
Like how morally right or wrong something is?
How morally right or wrong. And I'm not using the word moral because that has a lot of different connotations, so I really want to make sure that I'm elevating it so it sounds erudite, and we're like, oh, we're doing ethics now. But it is just the science of right and wrong, if I can call it that. So, given that we just did a huge amount of notes, what time is the class end?
Right now?
12? Okay, so I'm not going to have you do any more notes. We are going to do notes 6 to 8 on that. However, I'm going to just use you for a demo so we can start it at the very least. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is a perfect number. You guys can just sort of crowd in together so we can see that you're one group. Sort of slide back a little bit. And I want you to keep your hands right here. And I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to make a choice. The choice is super easy. All you have to do is choose whether or not to sit down or not. Okay? There'll be different consequences on what you do, but it's still easy. Okay? And you packed up entirely. That's not unusual. Yes. No, I know. Okay. For visually, since we have this group here, if I can get you to stand up, I need to separate you. Let's put you. I'll at least make you comfortable before we kill you. So there you go. You can sit there if you'd like. So, what we are in, gentlemen, you are the International Railroad Appreciation Club for the Deaf. Okay? You decided to have a party, you put in your forms and everything. Which one of you is really good at forms? Excellent. You fill out the form to shut down the trains because your party is being held on the train tracks. Okay? So you're having a party, you're all deaf, big tent inside. Okay? You may have seen this before, it's this example, but we're going to do a variation on it afterwards as well. So, you're partying away. You are working for the same railway company, and you're fixing the track. So there's a spot where the track's supposed to go back and forth. It's a little difficult. You're actually undoing it, and you're fixing it. So you're on the tracks. You've shut down the trains in a section. You've notified your superiors that you're safe. You're in the switch house. Javin? You're in the switch house. You control where the trains go, and you notice there is a train heading straight for the International Deaf Train Lovers Club.
Yeah.
Because it turns out he wasn't actually good at filling out the forms and he forgot. So you can see the train heading for them. They can't hear it because, again, Deaf Club. It's going to come through and kill them all. you could press the switch and send it down to the worker and just kill one person as opposed to 6. But if you do nothing, all 6 of them will die. So that's the set switch. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, they're all dancing on a train track.
And you can make this is Mari still Mari. We could say that they were all different people. You don't. I mean, you're. I get. Question a moment. You could say that you know them because maybe you know the person who's on the train. You could also say that you don't. How many of you?
Wait.
How many of you would have pressed the switch? Some of you would. Some of you would. Okay.
Wait,
Now,
can you see a train coming?
no, you're in a big tent on the track.
Because they're on the track.
They were celebrating the International Train Lovers Deaf Community.
Honestly,
Nice one, Rose.
even if
You killed 6 people instead of 1.
Next day, we're going to do a slightly different version of that.
oh god.
If you want to look it up, it is the trolley problem, and there's a lot of different types. Pardon?
I love the trolley.
The trolley problem is very good.
Second number. Bad.